Welcome to DoubleDM, the TTRPG podcast, where we talk about, tabletop role-playing games. This week, we talk about homebrew rules, which you should use, which you shouldn't use, how you will be able to create the best homebrew rules for your game. But for now, we are here to recap our weeks, what we did in our weeks, what happened for us, what happened in our TTRPG sessions, and stuff like that. So, Niels, how are you doing today?
I am doing quite good, actually. A bit sleepy still because it's fucking dark outside still, kind of. It is daylight, but it's dark daylight, if you know what I mean.
It's a dark daylight.
It's an advanced daylight or whatever, right? No, it's winter, and at least for us, and I don't like the general lighting situation during the winter times.
There is already a lot of snow, a lot of white powder everywhere.
Yeah,
I hate it. I have nothing against colder temperatures. Nothing. I don't have anything against the temperatures, actually. What I have something against is the fucking snow and ice. That's the fucking pieces of shit.
The thing is, if the snow would stay, it would be okay, but it turns, at least here in Berlin, it often turns into this grayish sludge shit show, and that's disgusting. I hate it.
I think it's actually called sludge snow or something.
Yeah,
it has a term for it.
I hate it.
Well, the thing is that I am very happy or not happy because the yard where I live is very secluded, and we have like 1 centimeter of snow already in that yard, and it's disgusting. Looking outside and hearing Mariah Carey barge down my door.
Oh, don't.
Every time I look at snow, I hear Mariah Carey in the background somewhere doing something. So
yeah, it is this time of year again when this eldritch being Mariah Carey will be summoned everywhere. Yeah, but other than that, I'm doing pretty good. I had an amazing TTRPG session this week. And this TTRPG session, it was mostly gathering information.
Okay.
Or rather, it was me throwing random shit at my players until something sticked. Apparently everything sticked, but that's also good. So I have a lot of options to progress the plot or progress different types of plots, because everything I threw at them was aimed at different directions to see what was most interesting for them. And they picked up on nearly everything. So now I'm stuck with, okay, you will go left, right, center, back a bit, and then around a corner to go forward that I have to prepare. But character backstory plots were engaged or will be starting soon through that. Then the main plot basically got a bit more spice to it and a couple of more layers and some just basically an ally finding phase. And of course, as players are, there was a flyer for a fighting tournament. And of course, as players do, they like to fight. They like to make a mess of some people. So obviously they took that, and now I have to prepare a fighting tournament. The brackets and all, it's all done, but I have to prepare the opponents. But this will be a lot of fun, I think. But that's about my TTRPG week. And other than that, just work stuff that we've been over and over again.
It's getting worse, right?
I hope not. Because it's really fucking bad already, but probably is gonna go worse. Actually, it can only go up because the customers are already assholes. They can always be more asshole-ish, but we have a lot of sick people right now, so we are way understaffed. That's awesome in December.
Winter time.
Amazing.
Let's go.
Yeah. Yesterday we were 4. None of them officially cash registers, could say. So everyone had to jump in that was able to handle the cash register. And then everyone sat at the cash register and nothing got done on the floor. So, anyways.
I mean, you have to make do with that many people.
Exactly. And if someone wants to complain, let them. I don't care.
I want to speak to your manager. Well, I want to do too because he's not here.
Exactly. You're preaching to the choir, man.
I want to speak to your manager. You don't have anything of that stuff left. Yes, I know. We want to talk to him so he can buy the stuff for us. We know. We are just as fucked up as you are. Yes, don't worry. We also hate it here.
Yeah, but no, actually work can be a lot of fun, but as per usual, Christmas times is very stressful, but this will blow over, I'm sure. I hope so. You'll never know. But yeah, that's my week. How about yours?
My week was very much fun because I wrote a test yesterday, a geology test.
Oh, okay.
I'm still so happy that I actually took a geology class that I'm just head over heels for this. It's so fucking funny to analyze rocks. To anyone who's a geologist out there, right? I respect you as people, but the stuff I have to do is kind of bullshit. Because I have to look at a stone and describe what I see and then make conclusions as to what stone it is. And I've been told 3 times before this test, normally you would do this in a chemical lab where you just put it under some microscope and look at the stone and take the microscopic tendencies or whatever, and then you know what stone it is and you don't have to look at it and describe what you see because, well, no one does that except when they are in the field and have to do it in some way, shape, or form. But we had a test. We got a granite, which for the geologists out here is probably like, oh yeah, granite, very easy, haha, because it's a very easy stone to analyze.
Okay.
It's a very easy stone, actually. At least in my opinion. It is the easiest stone you could have. It's also the stone that is most common.
Mm-hmm.
We have a diagram where we see which type of stone basically it could be, and QAPF diagram is what it's called. There are 4 different minerals that you basically look for. Quartz, I don't know the names of the others in English, but basically you have this diamond-shaped diagram and then just have to put in all the parameters and then you see which stone you have, and granite has the biggest field in that. So it is the most common one because it is just out of sheer size and out of placement of that tile in the diagram. It's very fun, but yeah. No, but aside from that, I had a TTRPG session on Tuesday, and that was it. Was Tyranny of Dragons. We are still at the Council of Waterdeep. We started with the Council of Waterdeep, and my players nearly botched the entire encounter because of inaction. And I'm gonna say this, normally I'm not the DM that says inaction should be punished, but in the sense of the game, if the players don't do something when others expect them to do something, they're not gonna wait around. These are political leaders. They don't have time for the players staring at them.
Yeah.
So what do? And then they just stammered about for 5 minutes straight, not knowing what to do. I said you can also take a time out and discuss as a group, as players, if you want. They didn't. So I said, okay, well, the first of them are going out the door now. And then the fighter, the one that said, I don't want to talk in this council because I'm just gonna fuck it up because I'm an idiot, was the one that saved it all because he intimidated all these political leaders into getting back into their seats and listening to them by somewhat threatening to kill them.
Okay, that's a bold move.
Like he didn't draw a sword, but he used his rapier to basically make a loud noise and say, well, either you stay here or you will have to deal with the consequences with a rapier in hand. So, I mean,
that's a bold move.
He didn't necessarily mean him killing them and more Tiamat killing everything, but it just sounded so perfect in the moment of, well, I'm gonna kill you if you don't stay.
Yeah, I just hope that after that they started to talk, so they really had something to listen to other than just silence.
My players then finally got their grip and started talking. And then we ended the session, and then I let the players go into Waterdeep and do their thing. And I gave them opportunities to basically visit all of these political delegations and meet with them, talk with them in private and stuff like that. And they decided to go to one of their friends first. And I never, it was so funny when I said as this NPC, oh, you're visiting me first. That's peculiar. My players' faces dropped when they realized they shouldn't have gone to one of their friends first, but to one of the other people first to introduce themselves or something. And then basically say, maybe we got off on the wrong foot. Hello, we are this. Do you have any questions? Right? You're in a political game. You can't just go to your friend. They know you already. They don't care.
You don't have to convince them or show them who you are because they already do know that.
Yeah.
The others don't.
And my players' faces dropped when I basically told them that way, well, you have to talk to the others as well. Do we really? Help, Papa! Mama!
I'm in danger.
We're gonna take off in 2 weeks again, or in 1 week again when this episode airs. That's the last session of Tyranny of Dragons for the year. Basically, everything I have in December is the last session of. I have now my last session of Tyranny of Dragons on Tuesday in 2 weeks. I have another session. Well, it's not another session. It's not the last of. Oh, well, it is the last session of Alice is Missing, the day when this episode comes out. And also my Phantoms of Chaos game is on the 11th. So that is also the last of the year. And yeah, then I also have a session next Thursday, which will probably be the last. It's all last of the years. And it's been a great year at that.
Oh yeah, TTRPG-wise, it really took off for me as well. And I'm ending this year with a Christmas one-shot, right before, the week before Christmas. A friend of mine in the campaign, from the campaign that I played this week, is going to DM that as a first-time DM. So I'm excited to see where all of this is going. I love the holiday-themed one-shots. I usually do one for each holiday with a certain group. And yeah, we just make nice food, decor the house specific to that theme.
Christmas.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Nice. Well, I can't wait to hear about that, but I have nothing else to talk about.
Me neither.
So I think we can jump ahead into our episode 96 on homebrew rules, and especially which homebrew rules you should use. And yes, we know the answer to that question. Hey, dear listener, we arrived at this episode's mid-roll. I don't want to keep you too long in this break from the usual program, but podcasting overlords demand that I ask you to rate and review our show to help us expand our reach and get new listeners. But also with more reviews and ratings comes the benefit of us getting a better feel for what you like and dislike about the show, allowing us to improve our show to the next level just for you guys. And hey, if you really like the show, then recommend us to your friends so we can share our content with them and help them with whatever dungeon master dilemma or player problems they are having right now. I know you hear this all of the time, but really doing so helps shows like ours and any other podcaster, especially indie podcasters, out immensely in creating the best content possible. So again, rate, review, tell a friend or whatever works for you. If you are feeling super generous today, you can check out our Ko-Fi and donate a few bucks towards upgrading the show with new microphones, editing software, and studio surroundings. No pressure at all though, this is just if you feel like you want to help out. Lastly, I also want to tell you guys about our social media channels and that you can follow us on especially Twitter or Instagram to stay up to date with the show and get a whole slew of other content like memes, tips, and general shitposts about TTRPGs and the TTRPG industry or community. Thank you guys so much for your constant support of our show, and we hope we can continue creating amazing content for you guys well into the future. Oh, one last thing. If you have a TTRPG product you want to advertise on our show, contact us about affordable ad space on DoubleDM episodes, and we also have promo swap spaces available for other podcasters and shows. And with that, right back to the show.
So, Emil, we are playing Titan's Call, and there were a lot of, not different rules, but additional rules that you implemented, or some at least.
Well, not that many, actually.
Yeah, not that many, but let's talk about those a bit.
Okay, yeah.
Once you have played a couple of campaigns, you might get to know that some of the rules in the system you are playing aren't perfect for your group or for yourself. So you add some or subtract some, change some, whatever. And I wanted to talk to you about some of the rules we do, or we do change, we do add or subtract, and the reason behind that. When I would ask, what is your favorite homebrew rule that you use? Which one would you tell?
It's hard, because it isn't even D&D. It's the Dark Eye, where you have to roll a lot more dice than, for example, in D&D. To make a simple skill check. Now this is, so it is a little bit more detailed and a little bit more differentiated in the game, but regardless. Because if you roll in that game a natural 20, which is in that game the worst outcome possible, you have to roll again. That same check, right? You roll 3 times for a skill check, 1 for each of the 3 abilities associated with that skill. And if you roll 20 or a 1 on one of these abilities, you roll for that ability again. For example, I roll on strength. I roll a 20 20. That means, shit, I need to roll for strength again. Then I roll again. And if I once again exceed the number of strength points I have, that's a critical failure. In the game, however, it would only be a critical failure if I roll 2 20s in a row, which is a 1 in a 400 chance. We said, nah, fuck that. If you roll a 20 and then exceed your strength or whatever ability limit, that's already a failure. That puts it down from a 1 in a 400 to roughly 1 in a 250 to 260 chance of failure. Way more likely.
Yeah.
Way more fun that way. Same goes for crits, obviously. If you roll a 1 and then roll under your limit, you get a crit. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And one of the fun things is what we do, it doesn't work for ones because those are more likely, right? Critical crits are more likely this way because your ability scores often exceed 10. So you have a higher chance of critting than a higher chance of critical failure. However, if you roll 2 20s, if you roll the 1 in a 400 chance, that's even worse than the critical failure. And if you roll after the second 20, a third 20, which is the 1 in 8,000 chance, it's even worse.
Yeah. Yeah, but every TTRPG player knows this is still a viable, or not a viable, but still an option, because I had it once that I rolled 2 checks in D&D, both with advantage, and I rolled 4 nat 1s in a row. So it is unlikely, but every TTRPG player knows just because it's unlikely doesn't mean it won't happen.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's amazing. But as you said, critical hits or misses are just way more fun, or can be.
Yeah, I really want to say this. Crits in games like D&D, The Dark Eye, whatever, they are for fun. Because, for example, I understand when people talk about D&D, where you only have a D20 roll, a single D20 roll. You do not roll a second roll after you've done your check. And if you roll a nat 1 on an attack roll, that's per D&D's rules a miss. But a lot of people use the rules that make this basically a critical failure, where you drop your weapon, where you fall to the ground, where you do whatever, right? And people often say experienced swordsmen or experienced bowmen or experienced spearmen or whatever, experienced fighters, experienced combatants would not fall to the ground or drop their weapon with a 5% chance every time they strike. And I agree so much.
Yeah.
Because I know that in Kendo, I don't think in 5 years I have dropped my weapon more than 3 times. And the first 2 times were basically very much in the beginning of me starting the sport. It's completely normal that normal people that are trained with weapons or that are trained in combat do not let their weapons fall to the ground with a 5% chance.
Yeah, but still, disarming is still a big thing in combat, usually, or especially in other HEMA manuals or something. There are disarming techniques, and that's usually the way I describe it. On a nat 1, you drop your weapon. It's not, you fumble, and then because of your own inability, you drop the weapon, but you strike at a very unlucky angle because the enemy turned in a specific way, and then the vibrations go through the sword, and then your hand just
I think there's even a much more simpler description, or a much more simple way to justify that you drop your weapon or you fall to the ground. It's a fucking game. We are here to have fun. We don't need to explain it through HEMA or through physics or whatever else. It's a game we're playing. And I think that critical failure rules in D&D make the game for me and my players more fun, because the chance of a critical failure is the same as a critical success. Because the people that say your swordsman wouldn't drop their weapon with a 5% chance, they never say, well, your swordsman wouldn't with a 5% chance always hit a weak spot for the enemy. Like, they are the same likeliness. They don't affect the balance of the game. If people really want to talk about balance of the game, because I don't want to talk about balance.
Yeah.
I just want to talk about this is fucking fun. If in combat, for example, what I do, one other rule I use in D&D, which we can talk about why I use that in a bit, is friendly fire. If you roll nat 1, you attack one of your friends. However, basically, you make another attack roll against your friend. So you roll against their AC, then roll damage, and can always assume that you're not using features, right? If the paladin wants to strike the demon, but rolls a 1 and hits the fighter in the group, and said, I wanted to smite before the strike even happened. He doesn't have to smite his friend.
Yeah.
But he has to strike his friend. But he doesn't have to smite. And now some people might say, well, that's unfair. That's not in the rules. Yeah, it isn't. But really, if it happens at the table, all people in the group start laughing. And I know we talked about this a few times, but you cannot really measure the value of TTRPGs. They are for fun. But when everyone's laughing, I know that everyone had fun. And that's what we want. We want this fun. And this nat Net 1 with a friendly fire hit was a lot of fun for the group. So why not do it? If it's not for your group, don't do it. I tell you that. You do not have to adapt these rules so you can have fun. But I can tell, for me, this is the most fun I had with it that way. It's just more fun for me.
Yeah.
And that's why I will keep doing it.
Exactly. Same for me. Usually the rules I use are just some people may dislike them or whatever. I don't give a shit. If you don't like them and don't use them, but let me have my fun with it, basically.
It's the thing. There's only a certain number of people that need to like your homebrew rules, and that's your players. No one on the internet should give more than just a flying fuck about your homebrew rules. Sure,
exactly.
if someone asks on the internet, on Twitter or Reddit, what homebrew rules do you use? And you explain one of your rules and someone goes in and says, I wouldn't use that rule. Yeah, thank you. I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
We use this. And really, you don't have to defend your homebrew rules. You can just ignore that person because that person has nothing added to the conversation.
Yeah.
Sure, you can have very good conversations with people about homebrew rules if you share a very specific homebrew rule that not many people use, and then you get people talking, and some people might say, okay, I might use that, but I change it this way. That's an interesting discussion to have because that's critical thinking. But going, no, I wouldn't use that, or I don't think that's a good rule. Yeah, I don't give a fuck. I use it, and that's and that alone tells me that it's a good rule. It gives more fun for my table, so I use it. I don't care what you do.
But staying on the topic of crits, because one rule I usually use, especially in D&D, are the improved criticals, because I think, especially if you double the dice, a crit can feel really underwhelming.
Yeah.
And I think if you roll a crit, you should deal more damage than a normal strike can do.
Yeah, I
think the lowest damage a critical strike should do is still more than the maximum of a normal strike should be able to do.
Yeah.
That's why usually, for example, if you have a weapon that deals 1d6 damage, you instead of 2 times that 1d6 or 2d6 damage, I usually do 1d6 plus 6 and then whatever other bonuses you have, just to have more of an impact. So, because nothing else feels as shitty as when you roll a crit, double, and then you say, yeah, we just double the number that's on the dice, and then you roll a 1. That just doesn't feel rewarding for me and for my players. But when you then see, I got a natural 20, I got the crit, you know it will deal damage. And you get that satisfaction of dealing a lot of damage. And that's why we use it.
I've also taken on to even do more with my net 20s or net 1s than that, or especially with net 20s, because net 1s for my players mean that they do friendly fire damage. So there should be also something that is extra for them on their crits. And that is, let's call them opportunities. And these opportunities, they can be anything really. For example, okay, you strike so hard that you really disarm him. Now the thing is, I will agree that this is a slippery slope and dangerous to do. Because, for example, the Battlemaster fighter needs to expend a superiority die to disarm someone. They have literally an ability that can disarm. So giving someone that doesn't have this ability, the ability to disarm with a crit, with pure luck, isn't that great. However, once again, my players enjoy this. And I do too. And it only happens if it really makes narrative sense. For example, if you're fighting on a cliffside and you deal a crit, and the fighter with his sword is so strong that he really brings the enemy off balance, then he's off balance. The next attack might push him over the edge, right? It's an opportunity. It's not much. It's just to make the combat a little bit more dynamic.
Yeah, and a bit more narrative, I feel.
Yeah, it's more narrative because the player can describe his crit and then someone says, okay, now it's my turn. And I see that and I want to try to get him completely off balance so he falls backward down the ravine.
Yeah.
That is, for me, very cool.
Or just then a character with not that much strength. You could say, okay, now that he's off balance, I take my chance and try to shove him because usually I wouldn't be able to, but now with this opportunity, I think I can, and then go up to him and shove that person down that ravine, and it just creates more interesting ways to engage with the battlefield and the combatants on the battlefield itself to make a really interesting, memorable, and very fun fight.
I think what we talked about with all of these rules that we had so far, right, is making the game more fun. And I think generally every rule, everything you implement should be aimed at that. But they can do that in a lot of different ways. For example, I could call the crit rules, or especially my opportunities and friendly fire rule, I could call them wacky fun. They are because we enjoy D&D as this wacky, this Lord of the Rings plus B-movie humor, basically adventure, right? A lot of fun, friends sitting around the table. We are very aware that we're doing something very, very awkward, actually, right? Sitting around the table with dice and paper, talking about imaginable characters.
Yeah.
It's fun, and that's why we do it, and we really want to have that fun. But there are also different other rules. For example, a lot of rules for me that make the game a little bit more harder. I don't want to say really hard or hardcore, but a little bit harder and different. For example, one homebrew rule that a lot of people use, or one homebrew alteration to the rules a lot of people use, is do not tracking rations, ammo, or weight or whatever, right? Do not tracking the tedious details. I don't do that a lot in my games either, but there's one game, for example, where I say we track those things, because this game is involving a lot of travel, also a lot of travel through areas that haven't been touched by humans or any other lineage and heritage on this earth yet. I want you to feel the impacts of traveling through wastelands.
Yeah.
And I can do that very simply through making you track the simple stuff. You need to buy enough rations to make it through. If you don't, you have to hunt and have fun hunting or something, right?
Yeah.
And this is a very simple alteration, but again, it was for the game's purpose and for the game's intent very important to do this. And this is the most important part about homebrew rules that I think a lot of people get wrong in the discussions about them, and also a lot of people get wrong, especially when they formulate homebrew rules in the beginning. It sounds very obvious, but it actually isn't. Look at the intent of your game. What story do you want to tell? What characters do you have? What's the world like? And right, what is the one, what type of fun you want to have with this game? Is it a story about dark gods where the land is it a grim dark world? Is it a high fantasy world? Is it low magic, high tech or something? Whatever, right? Think about what game you want to play. Not the system you want to play, but the game you want to play. And the game is the culmination of characters, players, story, world, system, and all of it together. What game do you want to play? And then you can modify a few of the rules in the system to get that game you want to play a little bit better across. And you should always look at this game's intent. What do you want to do? And decide that is what I want to do. Because in my D&D games, most of the stories I want to tell are epic hero fantasy with a lot of wacky fun.
Yeah.
That's why I have these critical failure and critical success rules. If it would be a grim dark world, I probably wouldn't have those, because it would be a little bit more realist to not have critical failures or critical successes.
Exactly. One campaign I'm planning on running some point in the future when other campaigns are finished or whatever, when I have time again to take on another jamming job, you could say, is I have this rule set lying around here from this German online TV station that basically takes place in a zombie apocalypse. And there I will, because the rules are it's very more or less rules light, you could say. The rolling system is kind of similar to the Dark Eye, but overall it's fairly rules light, but I want to create more of a realistic and more grim traveling rations and resting system for that, to really create a dystopian zombie-ridden wasteland flavor rather than just a wacky B-movie in a zombie apocalypse. That can be a lot of fun, but I want to run that at some point in the future. And therefore you need more grim or more realistic rests that, for example, if you just sleep a night, you're basically half dead won't be done. If you have a cut in your fucking stomach and basically with all your intestines out, good night's sleep won't fix that. That's something that I want to incorporate there for somehow. So I need a damage system, injury system, whatever the fuck, but I want to run on that. And maybe there's another rule set that does exactly that already. I have to take a look around there, but at some point, something along those lines I want to run.
I can tell you something. Just this week, Navar from Secret Nerd Podcast, who was on this show with us a few episodes back, I think roughly 30 episodes back, episode 69, released The Corrupted, a narrative system where you play survivors in a zombie apocalypse, which has very simple rules that get a lot of the feelings of zombie apocalypse, of The Walking Dead, of The Last of Us, and stuff like that very well across.
Oh, perfect.
It's very good. It's very narrative.
Mhm.
It's not crunchy. It's very specific. It's concise in what it does. And that's what I think is really good about this system. It is very easy to read, and its rules are directed at something, right? Its rules are directed at playing exactly what is said in the primer of this.
Amazing.
Survivors in a zombie apocalypse.
I will have to check that out. Amazing.
I want to talk about this a bit more. The zombie apocalypse is a backdrop, right? Zombies are there and they are dangerous, but you're playing the survivors. This game is not about fighting zombies all the time. It's about surviving in a world of apocalypse, in a world with zombies, in a world with danger around every single corner. That's directed at something, and the rules reflect that. And I have to say this is a very good part for the homebrew rules discussion, right? As I said, your rules need to reflect what you want to do with your game. But that also needs to go for the system. If you use a system like D&D is most famous for that because it's the biggest system, and you adapt it to do something it just cannot do, something D&D cannot do by its rules, then why aren't you playing a different game?
Exactly.
It's very simple. Go out there, look for different systems that will reflect 10 of what you want to do better. No, it isn't hard to learn new systems. No, it isn't expensive to learn new systems. There's probably more free systems out there than you think, and oftentimes you don't need that long to learn new systems. D&D is one of the longer systems.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun to learn new systems.
Sure, there are more complex systems, there are more crunchy systems than D&D, but there are also a lot more rule-slide ones, powered by the apocalypse, blades in the dark, whatever the fuck. There are so many different systems and overall engines, dice engines or whatever, that you can find that would maybe serve you way better than using the D20 D&D system.
Yeah.
And that's not bad. D&D is for epic hero fantasy, right? You're heroes. You're so fucking powerful. It's a power fantasy game. And that's good. But you need to play that. Sure, you can still play your little adventurer troop that has a lot of romance and stuff like that, or a lot of political intrigue. You can do that. I will not stop you from doing it. But if you want to run a political intrigue game, choose a different system, because then you will not have to modify a lot of D&D to make it fit. Play Court of Blades or whatever else that is political intrigue that you want to play, that fits what you want to do. If you have more systems in your repertoire, that will also help you formulate new homebrew rules for your D&D games, or for your Pathfinder games, or for your Call of Cthulhu games, because you know how other systems do this, and then with the knowledge of your own system, you can adapt those rules into your system. For example, Pathfinder's hidden checks, right? That you roll for only the DM to see, or the DM rolls on your check. You can easily do that in D&D, because it's still both a D20 system with the same kind of way it works, just a modifier added to your roll. But I don't think D&D has that written in its rules. It could be that it's somewhere in the optional rules of the DMG, but if it's hidden in there, well, yeah, no one knows about it.
Yeah.
Because not many people read the DMG, because the DMG isn't... It's a good book. I'm gonna say this. It's a good book for you if you want to DM D&D. But a lot of the stuff in there is also, not really that good, right? There are way better how to GM books out there than the DMG.
Oh, yeah.
But this is a rule that I will probably implement.
Hell yeah.
Tell my players, hey, roll your dice without you knowing the number. Just I am allowed to know the number. Maybe the other players are as well, right? They can know the number. That's also fine. But you as a player shouldn't know it or something, right?
Yeah.
It just adds a little bit more, you could say, tension to the knowledgeable checks, to the things that don't seem that tense normally. What knowledge do I have of dragons? Well, roll. Okay. Yeah, sure, dragons are this and this, period.
Yeah, exactly. I will definitely use this as well, especially for the checks that reflect senses and the knowledge, as you said, of the characters, because this reflects what your characters perceive and know. And when they know the role, it can lead to, I as a player know more than this, but I now have to play my character as he wouldn't know more in that regard, because I know I have a bad role. But when you do the secret checks, it's just reflecting, okay, you just don't see anything else. You see your party, you see cave walls, and that's it.
Yeah.
But when a player rolls, okay, I got overall a 3. That's not good. but I only see cave walls, but I bet there is still something here, so I will still have a watch and patrol around the camp. Yeah.
But I would have never taken up those rules if I hadn't played Pathfinder. So this is something that came from playing new systems, from being open to playing new systems. And for D&D, this is a homebrew rule. For Pathfinder, it is implemented. So, hey.
Yeah, I used hidden roles before, but only for one specific role in D&D, and that was the death saves. Because I usually roll the death saves for my characters hidden and just tell the regarding character what the die showed.
Yeah, that's another thing, right? That's another rule that adds tension. For me, I let my players roll and only let them and me know. They roll their dice because they like rolling dice, and I want them to roll dice. And they roll, they tell me the number on Discord or per WhatsApp or whatever, per message, just so no one else but me and that player know that roll. It adds tension for the other players, and that's great because that's what we want. We want the combats to feel just a little bit more tense and dramatic at the right points. If someone goes down, that's one of these points, because the others are like, shit, we don't know if they're still alive or already dead. We just know we have just a few rounds to save them because they're bleeding out. They're losing air. They are burning or something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great. It's again what I want to do with the game, reflected in the homebrew rules, to increase that effect I want to have.
Oh, yeah.
More tension in combats, make the death saves hidden, whatever else, right? Make this and this, make this change, depending on how you want to do it, right? And one of the other things is really find the rules you like. You don't need to use rules that a lot of people like, but you don't. If you say potion drinking as a bonus action on yourself is just not what I like, then don't use a rule, because you don't have to.
Exactly.
These rules are made to make the game more fun, or at least homebrew rules are supposed to make the game more fun. And you really should look out for that.
Exactly.
Now, homebrew rules can also, one other big part of them is add to a game where it is missing something. Now, that it depends on why it is missing that part, right? Because if it is missing that part on purpose, because that's not part of the core gameplay loop, and that part that you're adding is a major part of your game, maybe play a different game. However, for example, D&D is an adventure game. You're going on an adventure, and its travel system is completely fucking useless.
Yeah.
That's why I use Campfire by Abyssal Brews, which is a very good homebrew rule addition to your arsenal of homebrew rules if your D&D game involves travel a lot.
Yeah.
Because it's very simple. It fits the D&D vibe still, and it adds that little corner that is kinda missing from D&D to my game. And that's what I like, and that's why I use it. And that's why I don't try a different TTRPG with a fantasy epic hero style that has travel, because that's just one thing that I want in my D&D games that this other system has and D&D doesn't. So it's not much of a reason to switch yet.
Yeah.
Right? The thing is, if you want to play D&D, I can't stop you, and no one can. Be open to playing new systems. However, if you say, I want to play D&D because all the additions I am making to my game don't warrant me switching to a different system that might have a lot of different things I don't want from my games, then don't switch. This is a balancing act, and you need to do it with your players, because they should also get a say in this. Talk about it in session 0. So we wanted to play an epic hero fantasy game. First comes to mind D&D, but do we want D&D, or do we want to try a different one? Maybe, is our game supposed to be survival based? Maybe we should try a different game that has a little bit more of rules for survival then. Do we have any ideas? Do we want to look for something, or do we really just want to play D&D?
Yeah.
It's a simple discussion, but it's a good discussion to have, because that way, agreeing on the basic structure of your game, which is the rules you will be playing with, now is a group exercise. And when everyone agrees, okay, let's play D&D because it will fit the vibe I want for my character, we want for the world, and we want for the game the best, then let's do it. And then everyone is on the same page. And hey, TTRPGs are all about being on the same page.
Exactly. And another thing I usually do when playing D&D, because it's no major addition or subtraction or change to the whole system, it just enables us to have more fun, is when you level up and you roll a 1 for your HP, I let my players re-roll that, because therefore I get more heartier players, or more heartier player characters, I should say. So I have the ability to use way more of the fun side of the monster manual, or whatever other monsters you want to use. And I like to, or our table likes to have epic fights with big monsters and scary things and all the weird and dangerous shit in there. And if I don't have to worry to kill my players just by looking at them with a monster, it helps the fun with for all of us. So just, I hit the wizard, but because he just rolled shit every level up and has rolled a 1 for every single HP roll, he's now level 20 and still has only 26 HP. That takes away our fun, usually. I said, hey, why not try re-rolling once for HP, so I can put more monsters or enemies in that have a lot more oomph to it, to make it feel more epic, more dangerous even, without flat out killing everyone.
Yeah, sure. That's another rule you can use to make your game more the way you want to do.
Exactly.
I think what I can't say is how many rules you should use. It's impossible to say you should only use 5 homebrew rules before switching systems, because maybe no system can really do what you want to do without a few additions. But you should try to keep your homebrew rules as low as possible. This might be a hot take, but play your games as raw as you can.
Yeah.
And if you can, play them fully raw, because that is how the designers of that game intended that game to be played. If you really play a game fully raw, that means you're playing the game the way the designers wanted this game to be played and to tell the stories they wanted you to tell with it.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone uses homebrew rules at points. That's just because TTRPGs are inherently personal in their nature. Everyone plays at different tables. Everyone should make sure that everyone is having fun at all times in these sessions. The designers can only give you the static document that will lay the groundwork for you. The decision of that document should be important, but sometimes you need to make some changes. And hey, there's nothing bad about making these changes. However, these changes should be kept to a minimum, because if you change the game too much, you will dilute what the game designers wanted you to do in the first place with the game, and then you could also just play a different game.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the designers won't kick down your door and barge into your room and say you're playing their game wrong. They couldn't probably care really less. They provided you a system that inspired you to tell a story. You're using that system to tell a story with a few additions. Blah, 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 blah. The designers got their money for their design work on the game, so they don't really care that much. But you should care as a consumer about what you want to do, because the system will help you. If you work against the system you have, it will never be an enjoyable time as if you would be working with the system. You will always have a better time if you use the system with its intended purpose. Epic hero fantasy, grim dark fantasy, sci-fi horror, what the fuck ever. But look at the game and decide if it's good for that, what you want to do with it. Or look at the game and make a story with that game. Doesn't do you any good if you want to do a space opera political intrigue game with D&D. You're missing all the points here.
Exactly.
It just doesn't really work that way. You can do it. I will not be the one that says this is impossible. I can say it's possible, but you can also try a different game. You don't have to try to create rules for mech combat in D&D if there is Lancer right there for you to play.
Exactly. It's just homebrew rules should be there to enhance your game rather than make a complete new game out of the game you wanted to play.
Yeah.
They are there to enhance the fun that you have and not work against it.
They are supposed to be additions.
Exactly.
Not obstacles for the game, or not to create bypasses for different other systems in the game you have. Sure, ignore some rules. Sure, add some minor rules. But especially if you have major rules, you need to watch out, because I would classify my homebrew rules as either minor or major. Major, they change a lot about this game, or a lot about the balance, a lot about the system, stuff like that, or they are just big impactful things. For example, I have a rule that is called Cards of Fate. In every D&D game I have, except for Titan's Core, for example, my players get to draw from a standardized card deck 52 cards plus 2 jokers, and they don't know the value of their card, but whenever they make a check, whenever they roll a d20, they are allowed to pull the card, revealing what the card's value is to them, to me, and to the other players, and add that to their roll. It could be just a simple 2, or it could be an ace, which is a plus 15 to your roll, or it could be a joker, which is an automatic critical hit or critical success, which gives you an extra benefit. Now, this is once per session. Once every 4 or even 8 hours. That's not a lot. That's one check. But that's a major rule. It changes the game. D&D doesn't have anything remotely like that. Why do I use it? Because I believe when I play D&D, my players are supposed to be the heroes and are supposed to be somewhat chosen by fate, or whatever you want to call it, heroes.
Yeah.
And that's why I use that rule, because only they can get that. Only they do. Now, no NPC, no monster, no BBEG get this card ever. That's the rule. And it's a major rule. It really changes a little bit about the game, because my players have a little bit more control over the crucial dice rolls they are making. Because they have a crucial dice roll. I use my card so I can get a more guaranteed chance of success. That changes a bit about the game. It's a major rule, aside from the improved critical, which is a very minor rule in my opinion, because first of all, my villains get them too, so it doesn't change anything about the balance, because everyone can roll net 20 and do more damage. But it also just doesn't change much, because the damage, either you double the dice or you do the improved critical, normally in the expected value, the damage isn't all that different. Sure, it might be a little higher for the improved crit, but it's not that higher.
Yeah, you can basically ignore that.
If you want to change the system, you can do minor changes to the game if you want, depending on balance and the game's way of working and stuff like that. But if you add major things that are not supposed to be in the game, or that change the way the game is played, if you really do this, my biggest advice is make sure it still fits with the core themes of the game.
Yeah.
If you have a D20 system like D&D, do not, and if you really want to create mech combat for D&D, make sure that this mech combat still adheres to the basic rule principles of D&D. It uses a D20 roll for most checks. Don't switch the dice, because that is gonna throw everything off balance already. It uses simple modifiers. Do that as well. Use the 6 ability scores for the mechs and stuff like that. Don't throw everything the system gives you, if you really want to change a lot about it, out of the window because whatever you think. Just stay true to the game. Don't create weird mini games that no one understands. Please, really, stay simple. And oftentimes, simplicity is better than complex new homebrew rules. Rolling dice again if you roll a 1 on a hit dice. Improve criticals. Potion drinking. These are all very simple rules. Quality of life changes and stuff that just makes the game a little bit more into the direction you want to have. That's great. But if you want to add a fucking mech combat to D&D, that changes the whole fucking game.
Oh yeah.
Think about that a lot. Do a lot of research if you really want to do it. Talk to your players a lot about it, so everyone can understand it.
As you said, you need to make sure that it helps the game. So when you discuss which homebrew rules you want to use, session 0 is a perfect time to discuss which homebrew rules you want to use. And also not just to discuss what homebrew rules or how they work or whatever, but it's still keep in mind that you can, even after session 0, if you through play find out that a rule isn't working for your group. Don't be afraid to change that rule mid-campaign, because if it doesn't, it's, as you said, an addition to your game. It should enhance the fun of your game. If it doesn't, throw it out the window or change it to a way where it exactly does what you wanted to do. Enhance the game, enhance the fun you have. And if you, for example, know, okay, improved criticals aren't working for this campaign for whatever reason, okay, just talk to your players or talk as a group and say, okay, improved criticals don't work out for us. We don't do them anymore. And it's done. There's no shame in it to say, okay, I pictured this rule to work out differently in this context or in this situation or whatever, and just don't use it anymore. And then in a later point, use it again or whatever the fuck you want. Just talk to your players about it and don't be afraid to basically turn on and off rules to fit specific situations.
Yeah, I think the most important part about it is being upfront about it, right? You should not blindside your players with homebrew rules. You should make sure that everyone understands the homebrew rules you have. You should make it upfront very clear. And obviously, add, subtract, change, whatever fits the game. Again, as Neil said, they are supposed to help you. They are supposed to enhance. If they don't fulfill their purpose, delete them. And make sure that these rules always stay true to what you have. For example, for my D&D game, I've added a condition because this game is a little bit more survival horror themed. It's not that much of a survival horror, it's still epic hero fantasy, but these heroes sometimes get into a situation where they really have to survive the horrors of madness and stuff like that. I've added a condition that could be described as madness. It's basically frightened plus.
Frightened with extra steps.
Yeah, it's frightened, but the PC can't talk or walk and stuff like that. And if they is in that condition for too long, they get some side effects or stuff like that. I think we talked about it in our death episode as well, right? I have death rules, that resurrection, hardness, and stuff like that, resurrection side effects. These rules are meant to enhance roleplay at my table. And that is also can be done by Homebrew Rules, because they give prompts. Your character is now afraid of water. That's a good prompt for the player to change their character a bit after a very specific traumatic event.
Oh, yeah.
Like death, seeing a horrifying creature. And this kind of just allows us to change the game into the direction we want. And if it never fits for the game, we just leave it out. And right, what you always have to remember at the table is it's also okay if you, for example, have a homebrew rule. For example, I have one that is supposed to say every time you camp outside, you have to roll survival checks, blah, 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 to make the camp possible. And if you don't roll high enough, you don't get a long rest. But I only use that rule in specific situations where it makes sense. If my players are just camping in the woods, I wouldn't do it, because that's just too much of a haha fuck you. But if they are in very specific situations where it's really, really, really difficult and where I want it to be difficult, I tell my players, hey, you will have to roll it. If you don't roll high enough, you don't get a long rest. Understand? And they say, yeah, sure, we do. And stuff like that. Don't be afraid to basically arbitrarily switch off these rules, as long as you're upfront with your players about it.
Exactly. The upfront part is hugely important.
You as a DM, you shouldn't just arbitrarily do it. But for example, if you have a rule that is only applicable in specific situations, tell your players if that situation arises. Don't obviously make the call for yourself, but make the call as a table, or announce your call to the table so your players are prepared.
Exactly.
Make sure that everyone knows about homebrew rules, because if I'm not told about homebrew rules in the game, I will assume we play raw. And that means I will create my character and prepare myself for raw. If you then tell me that a lot of different things that are raw are just useless, and for example, your resurrection spells don't work the way they do in normal D&D, I'm going to be blindsided when I play a cleric that has resurrection spells.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to use these spells. You're nerfing my class without me knowing beforehand. And that's really important. You don't want to blindside your players with these rules.
And therefore, talk to your players about these in session 0. Explain how they work, why you use them, and in what situations you usually use them. This is a perfect spot for that, because session 0 is designed to do exactly that. Talk about the game you want to play before playing it.
Yeah, but really, you need to watch out. Because, for example, as I said with the beginning, with the opportunities I give my players, that disarming an enemy is going to make a specific fighter's, a Battlemaster fighter's feature useless. Because he has taken the disarming attack, and now everyone can still do it, and he still has to expend a die for it. That's not fair for him. That nerfs the class, and that's not fun when someone plays the class. So make sure that you know the system you're creating homebrew rules for well enough to actually create homebrew rules for it.
Yeah.
Read the fucking rules. Know what is in the game, so you can be sure to create rules that do not unwantedly nerf something in the game, buff something in the game, or basically outright change something of the core mechanics of the game.
Yeah.
Your rules should be only additions to the game, not changes. Really, I hate it when someone makes a homebrew rule that is basically just a change to the game, and we're playing a different game and I'm blindsided by it. But if you just add to the game by making it more fun, making it more difficult, making it just different, that's good. It's different than just changing it. You're adding something to the game that could just be described as you're adding more fun to the game by making your crits more likely, or making the crits better, or you're making the game a little bit harder. You're adding hardness to it by applying a new condition that is called madness or something, or making survival harder or whatever. But you're not supposed to outright change the game you're playing, because if you do that, play a fucking different system.
Yeah, and another thing that just came to my mind is homebrew rules aren't necessarily just need to be focused on the game you're playing. You can expand them towards basically table rules, you could say, but these are specific for every different table.
Okay.
And that's just something, if you play with one group that enjoys, for example, chit chat a lot or whatever, you can say, let's have an allocated time, like 30 minutes each hour or something like that. That completely off topic, basically, but still in topic, you could say.
I wouldn't call it homebrew rules. I would call it really house rules. That's something different. No, but yeah, right. That's kind of what we talked about in the session 0 topic. You should also make sure that at the end, these homebrew rules are supposed to to make the game more fun for the table. Sometimes more fun for the table means to just have a break for an hour and play Beyblades.
Exactly.
But that's not a homebrew rule. It doesn't change the game you're playing. It just means that you're taking a break from the game you're playing.
Exactly, but it's still something to keep in mind. I said my mind, and with that, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at DoubleDM Pod. We also have a website, www.doubledm.com, and also we have a Ko-Fi if you would like to check that out. And please, if you like the show, leave a rating on your podcasting listening platform of your choice. It really helps the show out. It gets us out there. It helps carry the word of our show.
It takes a few clicks. Click a few times. Click rate. Give us 5 stars. Write a few sentences. How much you like this episode, this show, whatever. Tell a friend.
Exactly. Just get the word out there. If you like it, show a friend, show your cat, show your grandma, whoever you want to show it to. It really, really helps us out. And with that, thank you all for listening. See you on the next one, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.